And there it is. I, of course, was going to buy this book. How could I not buy the book? You should buy the book.
I am broadcasting on all AM frequencies. I will be at the South Street Seaport every day at midday, when the sun is highest in the sky. If you are out there, if anyone is out there, I can provide food, I can provide shelter, I can provide security. If there's anybody out there, anybody, please, you are not alone.
It's the one, the only Alcor Star Child here. And I'm just going to cover a couple of things with Lou Elizondo book. I'm not going to go through the whole thing today. I really don't really have the time to do that. But if I get enough comments in the comments section of people requesting, please, share your thoughts on the entire book, then yeah, I'll go through all the paragraphs and all that stuff, and I'll explain my thoughts on it. And I'll share some stuff that shows that, hey, this actually is where you can find this newsreel, or where you can find this person talking about this. Because the thing is in this book, Lou Elizondo talks, the stuff that he talks about is, it's been out there. There's a lot of these stories and stuff have already been out there. People have been, people who've worked for the government, who worked in the military, have come forward and said, hey, we were at this nuclear silo and UFOs flew over the silo and shut us down. Well, Lou Elizondo confirms it. His job, and he explains what his job was in the Pentagon. He goes through like all his history. Well, not all his history, but he gives you a look into his life. Whether he's telling the truth or not, I don't know. We just have to take him for telling the truth. But remember, he's counterintelligence. But he talks about his life. He talks about, how he was raised Jewish. By the way, Lou is a Jew. And for those of you who think just because I've exposed things with the Jupiters that I might not like the Jupiters, that's just not true. I believe that Carl Sagan was one of the greatest people to contribute to humanity. I used to listen to his Cosmos show every single night before I went to sleep. It was extremely important to me. And that was before the 2017 experience that I had with what you guys call Mothman. Yeah, Carl Sagan, he's Jewish. And so is Lou Elizondo. So I don't have anything against anybody of any race or nationality or what planet they come from or their origins of their planet. The Jupiters are here. There's no getting rid of them. That's just not going to happen. And I wouldn't say get rid of all the Jupiters anyhow. I love watching James Franco movies. So, but anyhow, and he talks about, his children. He talks about his wife. So it's not just a book where he's just giving you all this inside information about working in the Pentagon as as the head of a department called ATIP that does research on the unexplained. Let's just call it for what it is. That was Lou Elizondo's job. Lou Elizondo, inside the Pentagon, hunt for UFOs. He calls the book Imminent, okay? His job was to investigate the unexplained, kind of like the X-Files, right? As much as we want to stay away from that stigma of the show, but that was really his job. And for anybody to really question him or say anything or try to poo-poo it or whatever is absurd. There's no more heroic thing that you can do than to expose something that the government has tried to keep in the shadows, to keep it away from people. Am I calling Lou a hero? In some sorts, yes, he is a hero. In others, he's probably a villain. Okay, so I don't really know all of Lou's past. I know that he's worked at Guantanamo Bay. We know there's some shady stuff that probably goes on there. He's killed people. Lou Elizondo has murdered people for the government for a paycheck. He talks about his experiences as having a rough childhood in some respects. I'm not going to say his childhood was rough because that's not really what he says, but he was going down a bad path, and then it was either jail or military. And he went the military route. He got lucky because he had somebody actually step in and interfere, and who cared about him, a teacher who said, get into the ROTC. Not everybody has that, right? Not everybody has been lucky enough to have good guidance like Lou had. And that's from that teacher. Now, he also speaks about, like I said, his mother raising him Jewish, his mother also giving him, the Christian background at the same time. He was allowed to celebrate Christmas, but he had to do Hanukkah as well. So he had kind of a diversity in religion growing up, which also explains who he is today. And he talks about religion, and he talks about the radical Christian movement inside of the government and how shocking that was to him, that there was this group of radical Christians who are dictating policies and things that are happening inside your government, which is extremely scary, considered radical Christians are no different than radical Muslims. Any type of radicalism in any of the three religions is not good for the rest of humanity, because radical means that they want to force humanity to bend towards their ideology and beliefs, and that's not good. He speaks about his father and how his father, I believe he said his father fought for Fidel Castro, and then when he found out that when Fidel Castro took over, then he started becoming this dictator. Then he fought against Fidel Castro and joined the La Resistance, or whatever I think that's French. But anyhow, he joined the resistance, right? So Lou's impressions as a child was from his Jewish mother's background and his father's Cuban background, right? So being of a warrior, right? He talks about how his father teaches him how to take guns apart and put them back together as a child, right? He teaches him that. He taught him how to break in homes, not because he was telling him let's go break in homes, but he was just teaching him all these different skills. So whether he was breaking homes or not, I don't think that was really happening. I think that his father was just teaching him the military stuff that he learned. So Lou talks about a lot of stuff with his life. His mother dying. And him experiencing colleagues dying in the field. He talks about the wounds that he's taken as a soldier in combat. He talks about all kinds of stuff. But he also talks about, so it's kind of a nice mix. It's a mix in between of learning who Lou Elizondo is and learning what Elizondo partially knows, because he's not going to give you the full truth of everything. So he's giving you some inside truth of things that he does know about that he can share. And that's what makes this book really a great read. But it's not just that it's a great read. This actually should be the only thing that everybody's reading right now, because this right here should just make the world stop, right? And everybody should stop and take a step back and say, where we are today as humanity on this planet is in a lot of trouble. World War III's going on right now. Like, it's happening. We're in the middle of World War III. It's happening. They just haven't officially called it World War III, but it's happening. The pieces are being put in place. Civil war is imminent in America. Whether one guy, Trump wins or whether he loses, people are saying that there's going to be a civil war, which is not going to be what most people think it is. But anyhow, where humanity is at today is on a lot of destruction, death, despair, a lot of negative energy. And obviously what you're doing as a species right now is not working. And Elizondo tells you in this book, you are not the dominant species in this universe. You're not even a dominant species on this planet. You just don't see the ones that are here because they're using cloaking devices. They're being able to block signals in your mind to stop you from seeing them and for them to be exposed. Brain waves are easy to manipulate. The humans have already figured out how to do it to other humans. So alien species who are far more advanced, they can do it to the entire globe easily. So, and that's, I won't go down all my theories on that stuff. But anyhow, I'm not going to make this, not going to be too long a video. Actually, I have a list of notes that I wanted to go through on this. So, like I said, he talks about his mother, he talks about his father. He also, so you want to know what stuff that is he actually talking about as far as alien stuff in here. Yes, he confirms the guy who worked in the Pentagon, the head of a CIA program called ATIP, well, an ex-CIA guy, had a program called ATIP, confirms that aliens' life is here on this planet. And yes, they're far more advanced. He also makes a good, compelling argument. I've read the whole book about why they're a threat. And I'm saying that not all the species here are a threat, but he makes a good freaking argument for people to say, wow, this is pretty scary. That this, if you read this book, it may scare the shit out of you. It may make you think that, wow, we really are in a lot of trouble. There's no fighting these species. I've said this many times before. You're in a losing battle. You're literally using sticks and stones versus grenade launchers. It's just not going to happen. You can't win that war. They can, when they have control over consciousness is the most powerful tool that you can possibly have as an opposition towards your enemy, right? If I can knock out your consciousness and put you completely asleep without you ever knowing that I'm there and just put you completely out, well, you're absolutely defenseless. You're a babe in the woods when you can't defend yourself when you're sleeping. So if I can if I can shut your consciousness down, you're at my will. I can do whatever I want to you. That's the reason why there's so much mass abduction. He talks about how much abduction happens in here. And I'm going to get to that on page 18 in a minute. Actually, you know what? We'll get to that right now. So, guys, if you want me to go through the whole book, I will. But here's something I thought that was funny. And I won't read the book word for word, but I will, if you guys want me to go through highlighted things that I think are important to pay attention to. So on page 16 here, Elizondo reports describe blood being sucked from their bodies. Everyone called the lights chupa chupa, which means suck suck in Portuguese. Okay, so he's talking about, and I'm just going to give you a brief thing on this. He's talking about the abductions and things that are happening in Brazil, and how the Brazilian government actually has a lot to do with their information going to America on the stuff that they're dealing with. So America's got their tentacles in all kinds of countries, Australia and other countries, where they're, taking over all of the alien and UFO experiencers and sightings, right? And so in here, in this very part here where he's talking about Brazil and the abductions and stuff, and he's talking about orbs, which the orbs are, the orbs could actually be, this is something that people don't really think about because they always think technology. What if the orbs can be the being itself? Like some beings can, I don't want to say shapeshift or whatever, but they can send out their consciousness as what you perceive as a orb, right? And this type of consciousness also can do and can interact with the natural world that right? So the orb can be a part of that being. And if this orb are sucking out, because otherwise, if it's just a ball of light, how the hell is it sucking out blood, right? But it's funny because it says, the reports describe blood being sucked from their bodies. Everyone called the lights chupa chupa, which means suck suck in Portuguese. So when you go over here, and I thought this is very funny because Linda Moulton Howe is constantly beating the drum that, oh, the tall whites are the good guys, you know. And she has her, I won't get into all that stuff. I'll just tell you this. When's the last time you've seen Linda Moulton Howe actually have somebody on of color who was a, you know, experiencer or whatever, that she's taken their stories? I've watched all her videos. I've listened to all her interviews. It's always has been Caucasian people. She will not interview people of color. You know, she only focuses on her own race. And the fact that she, and I'm not going to get too much into it, the fact that she said some stories that people come forward, we would call them, we don't believe that they're stories, we call them tar babies. Right? And then I looked up, I'm like, wow, that seems some kind of racist, tar babies. And she repeated it twice in that video. So yeah. And so she's constantly trying to tell everybody, you know, the tall whites are the good guys, you know. Well, in here, and she doesn't have the clearance that Lou Elizondo has. She'll never have the clearance that Lou Elizondo has. She'll never be as important as Lou Elizondo is in this subject, in this field. And she's been in the field a lot longer than before he was even born, I'm pretty sure. Well, not before he was born, but because I'm pretty sure he was born in 72. But anyhow, in some cases, witnesses managed to catch a glimpse of their attackers. Descriptions of the occupants of these otherworldly vehicles broke down into two types: beings that appeared to be pale, tall, adult humanoids. Pale, tall, adult humanoids. And beings with disproportionately large heads and frail bodies, about 3 to 4 feet tall. As I would later learn, those two descriptions are the so-called Nordics and Greys. Now, he says Nordics, but this also can mean tall whites. Fits the profile of alleged aliens from countless close encounters the world over. If this was some form of mass hysteria, then and this is something a lot of people like to recite and talk about all the different, so he's not the first person to say this. If this was some form of mass hysteria, then it had been affecting the entire globe for decades. So he talks about tall whites here, right? And this is right in the same subject where he's talking about, you know, because this is Brazil, and he's talking about the abductions. And then he also talks about, you know, blood being sucked from orbs. Well, that's funny because when I read that, and when I got to this, and I was thinking, I was like, oh my gosh, like the pale body, the tall, slender man who's got pale body, who's got pale skin, who drinks blood. What is that? Vampires. Is that where the vampire stories actually have come from? You know, throughout the years of people losing, you know, being sucked dry of their blood by a ball of light, and maybe they saw them turn into the tall white man. I don't know. That could be a reach, but it just seems, I found that pretty funny. So yeah, he talks about the tall whites. He confirms that the tall whites and the grays are real beings here on this planet, which most people who follow the subject pretty much accept that that's true anyhow, because there's been too many documented cases from too many people who have no idea who the other person is, or collaborating stories together, and they all have experienced the same types of things. So he definitely talks about that. Some of the other things that he talks about is he talks about the Tic Tac, right? In this book, he says things about the Tic Tac that I haven't heard yet, and I've listened to probably almost everything he can about the Tic Tac and the Nimitz ship and stuff like that. And actually, that's around page 72, which is funny, and I won't get into all of it right now, and I'm not gonna, there's something here on page 72 I'm not gonna tell you, but he says something here, and I just found it funny. In chapter 7, page 72, he says something here for the first time. He mentions a name, and I'm like, oh, what are the odds of that with 7 on page 72? And I'm not saying he did that for me or whatever, anything like that. It's just one of those things I'm just like, huh, that's funny. You know, people who know me well, know who I am. They could, they'll go through this book and they'll look, oh my gosh, that is pretty funny. That's hilarious. So yeah, good book. He talks about Wright-Patterson Air Base, which, I'm only a couple hours away from Wright-Patterson Air Base. I've been by there quite a few times. In fact, I had an experience when I went to Wright-Patterson Air Base here in Ohio, and I've posted a video about that. You should watch it. It's a pretty good video, I'd say. So yeah, he talks about Wright-Patterson Air Base. He also talks about some of the alien technology that went to Wright-Patterson Air Base, and some of that technology that came from the UFO crash in Roswell. He talks about the Roswell crash. He confirms the Roswell crash as being true, that a ship was recovered and bodies were recovered. And he talks about that here in this book. In fact, a lot of the stuff that he's talking about in here is the same stuff that when it comes to that, is the same stuff that Philip J. Corso talks about in his book. And I did a video on that. You should go and watch it. You should read this book first, and then go buy Philip J. Corso's book, and then read that book. Or if you already read that book, read this book and then go back and revisit Philip J. Corso's book, because then it will definitely reopen your eyes on a lot of stuff that Corso is saying. And it's funny because he talks about, the stuff with the crash, and he also talks about, I think it's on page 108. Let me see if it's on page 108, because if that's what the subject is I wanted to share with you guys. Yeah, here we go. On page 108, this is Lou Elizondo, and he's talking about he's talking about in the 50s, and he's talking about that after the crash of the Roswell and stuff, and he brings up that there are unusual reports of abductions and implants. This is something else. I'm sorry, that's the wrong part that I was talking about. It's over here on page 109, I think, with DARPA. Okay, yeah, and this is also very bizarre. And here, I'm going to go through this. It isn't that far a leap. Experiments by DARPA in the past showed that pilots can indeed remotely control an aircraft using their thoughts and a specific interface. Now, he's talking about humans doing this now, and it's because DARPA's experiments, right? So he's talking about humans being able to control airplanes. Well, my very first video on this channel was January 2020. I think it might have been like January 6th or something, 2020. And in that very first video, I have a clip of a scientist from DARPA who has a man who's a paraplegic in a chair who can't move, can't use his extremities. And the scientist from DARPA is showing DARPA's technology with hooking this man's brain up to a computer, and for the man to be able to fly a F-16 in a simulation, right, in a simulated world, just using this human's mind.
With that, again, my name is Justin Sanchez, and I'm a neurotechnologist by training. And like was just said, I was at my lab at the University of Miami, and I got a call out of the blue. At the other end of the phone, there was a person that says, "We need you to come immediately to Washington, D.C. and come to DARPA." And that's really where the whole story begins. All right? And we have the technology in order to identify those neurons, amplify their activity. There's minuscule signals actually happening in your brain. You can send those signals into a computer, and that computer can interpret what all of those signals actually mean when you're thinking about trying to do something. He's the one on the right side of the screen. And Nathan is living with paralysis. He was paralyzed in 2004 in an automobile accident. And Nathan had that same array, right, that 4x4 millimeter array, placed in his motor cortex, right, the part that is involved in movement. He had another set of arrays placed in his sensory cortex, okay? And you can actually see on the upper right side of the screen there's a little plug that's coming out of his head. That's where those arrays are connected to. And the wires send the signals from his brain actually to that bank of a rack of computers in the middle of the screen, process all of his neural activity in real time, and actually send that activity to that robotic arm. We also developed the robotic arm, and he met President Obama, was able to think about moving the robotic arm, and shaped shook the president's hand. Okay. Now, the other part of this story, but we asked him, Nathan, what else do you want to do? And he's a gamer. And he said, I want to fly an aircraft. So we said, okay, we can help you to fly an aircraft. So the next thing we did is we connected him to a F-35 Joint Strike Fighter and put him out over Las Vegas. And we basically remapped his neural activity onto any control surface that we ultimately wanted to on that Joint Strike Fighter.
There's not much difference from flying a drone, which interacts with your natural reality, and flying a F-16 inside of a alternate reality, you know, inside of a simulation. The controls are pretty much the same. So if for everybody was looking at it like, wow, this is great groundbreaking technology for paraplegics and stuff, but it was also for the military use, because make no mistake about it, that's what DARPA does. And the thing is DARPA is using alien technology. All the stuff that DARPA pretty much has, a lot of stuff that they have. I mean, they do have humans who are innovators there and stuff, but their core technology is alien technology that they're using from their crafts that they've recovered or gifted. And so he talks about that. And that's another thing that I made a video and I talked about as well, was that AI is not artificial intelligence. AI is alien intelligence. Alien intelligence, AI. Why do I say that? And I'm just going to be brief about this, because Lou Elizondo confirms that they recovered the contents of that UFO crash. They reverse engineered it. And before that, the humans didn't have computers. Not like they got after they got the crash, right? So you would not have AI today had they not gotten this UFO crash. It's alien technology that gave you it's reverse alien technology that gave you AI, which is you call artificial intelligence. I'm telling you it's alien intelligence because it does not belong here yet. It doesn't come from the human mind. It came from a reversed technology from a UFO crash. And in the end game here is that AI will be able to, your AI, your alien intelligence, which you call artificial intelligence, will be able to communicate with multiple different species that come here from other different planets faster and better than you can. So you really are going to have to depend on this artificial alien intelligence to interact with other species coming here from other planets, other dimensions, or whatever. So it's almost like they gifted you fire, the fire of the gods, right? So yeah, and it's in here. Anyhow, on this over here on this page, what I did mark down is there are the unusual reports of abductions and implants. And some people insist that they developed some sort of psychic abilities following encounters. Well, that's funny, because after my 2017 interaction with Mothman, which what you call Mothman, that's when my telepathy started going bonkers, right? So, and at first I didn't understand what's happening to me. I really didn't. I had no idea, but it was happening. I do now, but it wasn't just like I was given some type of a book and said, here's an instructions book, this is what to expect next. I didn't get that. Everything I had to unravel piece by piece, unknowingly, or anything, just things just start happening, and then I start piecing it together. So yeah, he talks about abductees and stuff like that, and he also explains that his job was not to really get into civilian experiencers. His job was to deal with strictly government and military stuff. If another government is coming to him, like the Brazilian government, and they're saying, hey, look at these cases, and those are cases of civilians that they've selected, well, then that he can look at it that way. But as far as somebody coming in off the street and saying, hey, Lou, I had this experience, or I saw this or that, it ain't going to happen. That wasn't his job. And so, but he does credit that there are people out there who are doing that, who are taking note of people who are experiencers and stuff, and he commends people for doing that. such as like George Knapp and stuff. So yeah, it's a good book. He goes to Project Stargate. He talks about Stargate. I mean, this book is riddled with 1972 stuff. He doesn't actually say, you know, hey, this is 1972, that's 1972. He talks about a car that was 1972. His dad had him drive his first car, I think it was 1972 or whatever. But he doesn't really go through all that. But it is, if you follow my channel and all the stuff that I talk about 1972, a lot of the origins of stuff that he's talking about in here come from 1972. I mean, you have Dark, but you have Project Stargate. He talks about Hal Puthoff and stuff and all this, and he goes through his how he was introduced to Project Stargate. Yeah, Lou Elizondo was part of Project Stargate, and which is funny because there was a movie called Men Who Stare at Goats, which was about Project Stargate, and the main character that they were talking about, Guy Savelli, had a karate school 8 minutes away, or 12 to 8 minutes away from my karate school. And I had met him long before the movie Men Stare at Goats, and I met him before my experience and all that stuff. So he passed away in 2020. Go figure, of course. But he was in Project Stargate, and I showed that in a video. So I have a video of that where I show that. But Lou Elizondo also talks about how they, you know, he talks a lot about remote viewing in this book. And all humans have telepathy. I've said that many times before. And I said that the best thing could happen for humanity on this planet is to give humanity advanced telepathy and for all the alien species to step away for 2 years. Leave them alone. Give them all advanced telepathy and then leave them at it for 2 years. And then the humans will figure it out, and then they'll be able to revisit this planet and try to, and let the humans step forward to be part of the galaxies, you know, and the universe. But until then, with all the deception and all the hatred and everything that's going on, it just ain't gonna happen. You're never gonna get humans to that point until they get advanced telepathy, and all humans have telepathy in Project Stargate. The government knows this. Most governments know this. All humans have telepathy. They just keep it from you, right? They don't want you to be able, they don't want you to, you know, I think that they're definitely afraid of losing government control. And having advanced telepathy may be the thing that will just wipe out all governments across the entire planet. And that's a shame, because that's just a few people on the planet who control the masses. And if the masses get advanced telepathy, that's probably the end of that. And it's not me speaking against government or towards government. I don't care. That's I'm not here on your planet to disrupt your systems. Which is funny, because system is the same thing as what you call a computer system. And then okay, I won't go too much down the rabbit hole. But he also talks about how him and a few others got into a circle, and they used their telepathic abilities or remote viewing to harm somebody that they considered a terrorist, somebody who was already in custody, and they wanted to do harm to him because they said that he did a lot of harm to people and he was just an evil, vile person. And they experimented by getting together and see if they could actually do a psychic attack. And it was successful because a man stepped forward and said that he had these 5 glowing white angels, who was attacking him in his sleep, right? And so they knew that they did their job. And if you have watched my video where I talk about advanced telepathy, advanced telekinesis, I also made a video talking about how you can weaponize telepathy. Go watch that video. So long before this book was out, because it came out in 820, which is funny. 820 is 82. But this book came out in 820, and Tintin will get a laugh out of that. But it came out on 820, and this year. But which is another thing too, which is funny. When I was in there waiting in line, I saw this thing, right? I saw this sitting in there, and I was like, oh man, I gotta buy it. It's the Big Dipper. So I bought it because, you know, and, you know, there's the 7 stars, you know, which the forgotten one is not there because of Big Dipper. There's actually an 8th star, which is the Alcor. But I asked I was looking for the books, you know, where's this book? And the guy said, we haven't gotten it yet, and we have one shipped to us. I'm like, one? He's like, yeah. He's like, I know. He's like, if it was a Stephen King novel, if it was nonfiction or whatever, we'd have a whole stand, a whole bunch of books here. He's like, but we're just getting sent one of these books. People just don't really care about this stuff. Okay, it's the most important thing in the world They don't care. This is the problem with the humans. This is the reason why humanity looks bleak and looks doomed, because it just won't get out of its own way, right? It won't take the things that are serious and could change everything for you for the better. There's too much separatists and just what I can get, well, for me. And that's sad, because this could change the whole world for the better. But, so anyhow, yeah, so that's the story. Also, I was wearing my David Bowie shirt, which is another funny thing when I went to get this book. And the guy said, oh man, yeah, David Bowie, I love, he said about this song or whatever. And I said, yeah, that actually came out in 1972. But, anyhow, let me get back to the list. So he talks about Roswell, he talks about cover-up, he talks about Stargate, talks about doing psychic attacks with Project Stargate, which is something I talked about in my video. And I said that, yes, with everybody having advanced telepathy, doesn't mean that you can't have your private thoughts to yourself. You can have your private thoughts to yourself. Everybody will have their private thoughts. You're not going to always just be invaded, right? But if somebody did something that they're expecting to be really, really bad, how could they get that out of that person? Well, I said you would take one person, that person, you put them make them stand somewhere, and you'd probably take a group of like 8 or 12. I can't remember what the number was I used. We'll just say 8 for the fact. And you get those 8 people in a circle to stand around that person, and they just all hone in on this guy with their advanced telepathy against his walls. They'll break his walls down, and then they'll extract the information. Right? So exactly what I said about a year and a half ago in my video talking about how to use advanced telepathy as a weapon, weaponizing it, is the same thing that Elizondo says that they actually do. Which, hey, what are the odds? I said that a year and a half ago, long before this book came out. He also talks about nukes, how about the people saying, are these aliens good or bad? And he makes a good, compelling argument that, hey, if they were good, they would have stopped us from making nuclear weapons a long time ago. They show that they can control our nuclear weapons, but they never stopped us from advancing nuclear weapons. So in his mind, he's saying these are not good beings, because if they were, they'd say, hey, this is bad, and they would automatically step in and interfere. I'm saying that there will never be an all-out nuclear war on this planet, because they will shut it all down. There may be a few nukes that go off that will get things started, but after that, I think everything's going to be shut down on the planet. They're just going to shut it all down. They'll shut down all technology. You can't launch nukes without having these aren't like dumb bombs where they're dropping them just out of an airplane. And even so, once you shut down the electronics in the airplane, even if they were trying to drop them, the airplane would drop. So it's just, they did shut it all down. So that's not going to happen, because you're not going to just destroy their lab. This is a giant laboratory. And as he confirms, the tall whites and the grays are doing some, pretty awful shit. And I'm not saying that they're all bad, and I'm not saying that any of them are good. I'm saying still go take everything neutral. Take all of it neutral. Try to understand their perspective. Go in it as a neutral, and then you can make your judgment call on what you think. But you have to take everything neutral, because if you don't, then you're proving that humanity is, in their eyes, not worth saving. Right? That's the problem. Until you can find that neutral position, what's good for you could be evil for the opposer, right? The opposing party, or like the cows. You slaughter cows. You put them, you abduct cows. You put them in pens, and you force them to have babies. You steal their milk. You slaughter them. So the cow, in the cow's eyes, you're evil. But in your eyes, hey, I'm getting nourishment, I'm eating, I'm feeding my children, I'm feeding my family off this cow. So you have to look at it from a neutral perspective. He talks about missing time, alien implants. He goes through a lot about alien implants, stuff that probably scare the shit out of you. But anyhow, I think this video's gone on long enough. If you really want me to get into the book, leave comments. If I get enough comments, then I will go through the whole book. And share my thoughts on all the different subjects. And I mean, I've just touched on quite a bit here, but I could go through like the whole thing. I really don't have the time to write my own book myself. I've been spending a lot of time doing that. And mine isn't just going to be like the way he's done his, where he's just going off his memories and stuff and things that he saw and experienced. Mine's just a ton of research that you'll be able to, with each subject, look at where I got the source of the information and fact check it yourself. So I have to do all of that. I have to constantly fact check it. Sometimes it takes me 3 or 4 days to go through one subject to get all the clips, all the newsreels, all the newspaper ads, all the or whatever, articles. It takes a lot for me to do on each subject. Sometimes it's like not so big, but a lot of the stuff it's a lot of research. And so that's pretty much what my book is about, 1972, and that will break your reality, because the one thing that I say that is that I think, before I go on to that, in the back of the book he actually has Chris Millen leave a comment here. So but where was I talking about? I'm not here to promote my book. It's not about that. I really want to just talk about this book here. So yeah, Lou Elizondo's book. Get it, read it. It's important. Tell everyone you know about this book. Tell everybody. Share as much information as you can. If you're not doing that, you're not helping humanity. Helping humanity by just giving somebody change in a cup or dropping off somebody a sandwich, those things are those are great things. But this can help the entire world, not just one person. We're talking about everyone. And the reason why I say that is because it should make people think, start doing research, start taking it serious, and start getting prepared. This is why it's called imminent. And what he should be saying in here is you need to be preparing for what is imminent, right? What's coming. Not just people who think, oh, we're going to get our guns and get bunkers. That shit ain't going to save you. I told you, consciousness, they can shut it down. But getting prepared internally, inside your own mind, understanding your reality, and understanding that you have limited control. I'm not going to say you don't have any control. You do, but you have limited control. You don't have the control that most people think that they have. But you do have some control. And the one thing that you have the most control of is the actions that you're going to take forward after you read this book, or after you even hear this message of me telling you to get this book. Take actions, move forward, get the book, read it, make changes in your life, get prepared, because it's imminent. You can't, how can you dispute somebody who has clearance in the government that you'll never, ever, ever have? You will never have that clearance that Lou Elizondo had, other than those of you, the small group of you from the government who are listening to my videos, because they pay attention to everything I'm doing. So get the book, pay attention, make changes, and get prepared, and start understanding what reality truly is. And with that, enjoy the rest of the time that you have left.